Good afternoon. I'm both honored and excited to share with you my ideas about unlocking opportunities through family literacy. I want to remind you that you can hear me speak in person at the Splash Conference in July. Choose any applications that you use, close any applications that you use bandwidth on your device. Click the arrow at the top left of your screen to display the chat panel. Please post your questions by clicking the question mark at the top center of your screen. For a larger view of the slides, click the full screen image on the upper right of your screen. For audio issues, you can switch to phone by clicking the telephone icon at the top center of your screen. Tweet using Ed Webinar. Join the community. Early Childhood Learning Solutions, EdWebNet. To get your CE certificate, you will receive a certificate via email to you in about 24 hours. Empowering Families program seeks to help children succeed in school and life. I'm Patricia Edwards, a member of the Reading Hall of Fame, a professor of language and literacy in the Department of Teacher Education at Michigan State University. I served on the International Reading Association Board of Directors, and I also later served as president of the International Reading Association, that's now the International Literacy Association. I want to begin by giving you some background information on why family literacy is so near and dear to my heart. I'm from Dougherty County, the county seat for Albany, Georgia. I was born and raised in Albany. In his classic book, The Soul of Black Folk, renowned scholar Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois portrayed Dougherty County as a place where vast ignorance festered untouched. After reading 2 chapters from the book, Dr. Joseph Winthrop Holly fell down on his knees and prayed, "Lord, give me the courage to go to Dougherty County and strike a blow at the ignorance portrayed by Mr. Du Bois." Even though Dr. Holly, a native Southerner, had been accepted at Harvard University and could have had a wonderful life in the North, I'm glad Dr. Holly answered the call to make a difference in Dougherty County. He is the founder of Albany State University, my alma mater, a historically Black college. When I was growing up, I often heard my mother say that teaching was a good career for women, especially Black women. I made the choice to follow my heart into the teaching profession at a very early age. I was destined to become a teacher. Also, I often heard my mother say it was such a blessing that Dr. Holly built the college in our community. In my family, education was seen as a valuable possession, as a beacon of hope, as a means to personal freedom. My passion for improving the lives of others, which was birthed when I was a young child, has remained within me. I was taught that the world had a lot of problems, but I could struggle and change them. I was taught to advocate for the powerless, provide direction for the restless, speak for the voiceless, motivate the hopeless. My family constantly shared with me 5 important quotes from George Washington Carver, Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass. George Washington Carver: Where there is no vision, there is no hope. If you can't read, it's going to be hard to realize your dreams. Booker T. Washington. I have learned that success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has had to overcome while trying to succeed. Booker T. Washington. Once you learn to read, once you learn to read, you will never forgive. Let me start up. Once you learn to read, you will be forever free. Frederick Douglass. My grandfather, Tate Plummer, organized a school for blacks in the early 1900s in Dougherty County. My grandfather's brother, Elsie N. Tucker, and Elsie's wife worked to make the Plummer School a success for colored children. My grandmother, Callie Robinson Plummer's brother, Bailey Robinson, was Ray Charles's father. Yes, the famous Ray Charles. I had stories of how his mother, Aretha, sent him to the state-supported school for the deaf and blind in St. Augustine, Florida. Also, he was heartbroken to be leaving home. It was at school where he received a formal musical education and learned how to read and write and arrange music in Braille. My uncle Joseph Plummer was the first in my family to graduate from college and the first black principal in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He often shared with my sister and I how grandmama had worked hard to make sure that he did well in school. My mother was president of PTA throughout my entire 6 years of elementary school, and my sister and I provided the entertainment at the meetings. Mr. Dent and my mother were childhood friends, and we lived right across the street from each other. Mama passed away several years ago, but Mr. Dent recently passed away at the ripe old age of 95. A few years ago, I honored Mr. Dent with the Crystal Apple Award at Michigan State University. I grew up at a time when all of my teachers lived in the same community, and you saw them at church and at the A&P store every Saturday morning. Whatever I did, my mother heard about it. Some people would say that those were the good old days. This is a picture of Mr. George Dawson, who learned to read at 98 years old. One of the images I saw in my community and church were African-American adults like Mr. Dawson, who were illiterate but highly respected. As a young child, I thought I could teach and reach everybody in my community, including adults. All of my young life, I constantly heard that all families should read to their children and all families should work with their child's teacher. So to me, all meant all. This is me. When I was in second grade, I was strongly reprimanded for correcting the reading miscues of my Sunday school teacher. I was told by my mother and my grandmother that I'd been very disrespectful and I needed to understand the importance of respecting my elders. As a result, I quickly recognized that if I was going to become a teacher, I needed to focus on children and not adults. At 7 years old, I had an excellent plan of how I was going to become a teacher. My daddy owned a barbershop in our backyard, which gave me an excellent opportunity to practice my teaching skills on the boys who came to get a haircut. The song "Where the Boys Are" characterized my house all day Saturday. Every Saturday, Daddy cut hair from 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. I sold my parents on the idea that I could have a Saturday school from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. What really got me excited was that I had a very captive audience. As the boys came through the gate that led to my backyard, I would greet them saying, "Hi, boys. Welcome to the Edwards Barbershop and to Pat's Saturday School." The boys would often reply, "I didn't come to your house to go to any Saturday school. I came to get a haircut." With a twinkle in my eye, I would say, "Yes, you came to get a haircut and to go to Pat's Saturday school. For those boys who were unwilling to attend my Saturday school, I would say, Daddy, this little boy told me that he wasn't going to come to my school. And my daddy would say, son, can you read? And of course, the little boy would say, no, sir. Well, I think you should go to her school. With a bright smile on my face, I would say, I told you so. You have to come to my school. And guess what? I have a permission slip from your mama, and she wants you to come to my school. See, your mother signed it, and you have to come to my school. I showed all of the boys very quickly the same permission slip. If they still resisted, had another backup plan. If you don't come to my school, I'm going to tell my daddy to cut all of your hair off. You're going to be a baldy. Many of the boys were missing teeth, and I would tell them it would be so bad to have a bald head and be snagger-tooth. Well, I had an excellent recruitment plan. I got my captive audience every Saturday morning. I read books. I taught the alphabet, how to count. I had a full curriculum. Some of the boys would say, you taught that last Saturday. And I would say, I'm reinforcing your learning. I even kept progress reports on each of the boys who attended my Saturday school. Years later, many of the boys told me how helpful those Saturday lessons were. Even though I was the youngest uncertified teacher in Dougherty County, I'm proud to say at the tender age of 7, I experienced the power of teaching. In 1983, Denny Taylor published Family Literacy, which is regarded as a classic in the field. Literacy is at the root of a person's ability to succeed, and the family is at the heart. Study after study shows that family, school, and community are the true drivers of a child's education. Family literacy can be defined in a couple of different ways. Parents and teachers participate in literacy activities together. Family literacy implies a customized curriculum for parents on how to improve literacy in the lives of their children. Family literacy practices, approaches, and programs and initiatives are most successful when they consider the daily realities of students and their families, reflective of diverse families' cultures, histories, lives, experiences, meaningful and relevant, inclusive of social and intellectual resources of households. Any family literacy work that supports parents in their efforts to make a better life for their families is family literacy. Family literacy means much more than parents reading bedtime stories or helping children with homework. Family literacy includes whatever strengthens communication within families and enables parents to advocate for family needs. Parent-child activities in the home, such as helping children to recognize letters, reading to children, or assisting children with reading and writing assignments, have been found to improve children's language skills and heighten their interest in books. What else do family literacy programs provide? You can see on the chart a variety of things: after-school programs, computer training, advocacy, childcare, social services, recreation services, health education, immigrant services, elder services, and the list goes on. What do we know? In 1908, The Psychology and Pedagogy of Reading, Edmund Huey wrote of children who seem to learn without any direct or explicit instruction. The secret of it all, what Huey says, lies in parents reading aloud to their children. That's been 110 years ago. And we still have a lot of parents that don't read to their children. In 1985, Becoming a Nation of Readers asserts the single most important activity for building the knowledge required for eventual success is reading aloud to children. The path to literacy begins long before children began formal reading instruction, and experiences that occur in the home influence the later course of children's reading success. Kathy Al states that literacy begins in the home, not in the school. Instruction should build on the foundation for literacy learning established in the home. When I met former First Lady Barbara Bush, who recently passed, I said to her, I am happy that former First Lady Nancy Reagan said no to drugs. I'm extremely happy that you said yes to literacy. First Lady Barbara Bush stated, I strongly believe that if every man, woman, and child could read, write, and comprehend, we would be much closer to solving many of our nation's serious problems. First Lady Barbara Bush and First Lady Laura Bush focused on literacy. Former First Lady focused on family literacy, and former First Lady Laura Bush focused on library initiatives, which provided the opportunity for a lot of children who could not afford books to go to the library and check out books. Few children learn to love books by themselves. Someone has to lure them into the wonderful world of the written word. Someone has to show them the way. The more you read, the more things you will know. The more you learn, the more places you will go. Dr. Seuss. Jean Chall, Harvard University professor, who also wrote Learning to Read: The Great Debate, she said, we need to redouble our efforts to identify and reach those who need to participate in family literacy programs. Solving the literacy problem of the nation and in a community, we require multi-level, long-term effort. We must resist the attractiveness of quick fixes and accept only validated and flexible solutions. Read to your child is the most frequently requested parent involvement activity. I made the decision to volunteer as a parent consultant at a local Head Start center in Ruston, Louisiana, years ago. My goal was twofold: to increase families' awareness of the importance of supporting children's educational development, and assess how low-income parents interpreted the request from teachers to read to their children. This research is described in a book entitled, this research is described in a paper entitled Supporting Low SES Mothers' Attempts to Provide Scaffolding for Book Reading. And it broke new ground by highlighting the need for teachers to shift from telling to showing low literate parents how to share books with their children. In response, I organized the Parents as Partners in Reading program at Donaldsonville Elementary School in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. My goal was to assist parents in participating in effective book reading interactions with their children. As a result of this work, I authored 2 nationally acclaimed family literacy programs, Parents as Partners in Reading and Talking Your Way to Literacy, a program to help non-reading parents prepare their children for reading. Former First Lady Barbara Bush included my Parents as Partners in Reading program as one of the top 10 family literacy programs in her book, First Teachers, which highlights 10 family literacy programs nationwide. My program was also highlighted on the Dan Rather Nightly News. I was highlighted as one of 5 Americans everyone should get to know. I've spent my entire career focusing on school, family, and community partnerships, and I've written several books that I think are great. Many of my books have been bestsellers. After leaving Louisiana, I moved to Illinois to serve as a senior researcher at the Center for the Study of Reading at the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. After spending 1 year at the Center for the Study of Reading, I joined the faculty at Michigan State University. At Michigan State, I worked at Kendon Professional Development School for 4 years. My work in Donaldsonville, Louisiana was a story about learning how parents support their children's literacy development and assisting them in doing so. From my work, I coined 2 terms: differentiated parent involvement and parentally appropriate. I proposed the concept of differentiated parent involvement as a way to urge schools not to place all parents in one basket. When schools design programs for parents, one size does not fit all. I use the term parentally appropriate to say and stress that because parents are different, task activities must be compatible with their capabilities. This is not to say that parents' goals for their children vary greatly. They want their children to succeed in school, but it's clear that their children's perspectives and abilities affect their capacity to support their children in particular ways. Also, when I moved to Michigan, I wondered what kinds of stories parents needed to tell and what kinds of stories teachers needed to hear. So I proposed one of the things that I learned is that sometimes the home and school are on 2 different parts of the Grand Canyon. You have the home on one side and you have the school on one side. Families send their children to school where they hope their children will become learners with the tools they need to succeed in life. Schools take their children from and send them back to their families, where they assume families will provide the support that children need to grow and learn. This circle in which the home and school share the resource of children is one that has been the focus of development and debate. When I was working at Kendon Professional Development School, I came up with 3 working strategies that I'm going to talk to you about quickly. First was parent stories. Second was demographic profiles. And third was a scope and sequence of parent involvement. I encourage teachers, using the medical metaphor, that when parents take their children to the doctor is very interested in the history of the child's illness. But very few teachers have a history of the child's literacy development. So let me go on and talk to you quickly about parent stories. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt said we have to face the fact that either all of us are going to die together or we're going to learn to live together. And if we are to live together, we have to talk. Children spend about 76% of their time outside of school and 24% of their time in school. So what happens out of school is extremely important and has a great impact of what's going to be happening in school. Alfred Tatum says it's not just about students' literacies, it's about their lives. Most of you are familiar with the National Reading Panel, and Tim Shanahan and I had the opportunity to work together when we were on the board of directors for the International Reading Association, and I really liked him. Tim is also from Michigan. But I like Joanne Yatkin a little bit better in this situation. She said, I attended a presentation by Patricia Edwards, and at that time was on the board of directors for the International Reading Association. One of the things that the National Reading Panel did not do, it did not focus on children's home literacy environments. And you as educators know that sometimes the devil is in the details. And we always say that parents are their children's first and most influential teacher, but sometimes we don't tap into that. Parents know what has happened to their children. Um, a lot of parents just don't know a lot of teachers just don't know what's happening and how parents prepare their children for literacy learning. All children, regardless of socioeconomic status, racial, cultural background of the family, benefit from home literacy environments that foster language and literacy skill development. So I wrote a little book entitled Path to Follow, Learning to Listen to Parents, because I was very interested. We always say when teachers don't live in the communities in which they teach, guess what? We blame teachers. Doctors don't live in the communities in which they practice, and we don't say that's where their patients are dying. We don't blame lawyers when they don't live in the community. So I thought to myself, I needed to write a little book where teachers could collect that data. According to Vanda Griffin Green, every parent has his or her own story to tell. In his book, The Call of Story, Robert Coles says one contends one's response to a story is just as revealing itself. One of the things that I always say is that if teachers don't understand the story, sometimes it's extremely difficult for teachers to connect with families if they don't understand their story. So in the past, as teachers and educators, we've asked a series of what I call one-dimensional questions. How many hours do you routinely spend reading stories to your children? Have you set aside? Well, let me say this to you without reading every last one of these questions. Most parents will tell you that they do all of these things. They'll say, yes, I read to my children. Yes, I select the programs. I do all of this. But guess what? You as a teacher, sometimes you don't see it in the classroom. Although multicultural curriculum and teacher preparation programs has helped the cultures of school accommodate the customs and other cultures, multicultural education has not permeated pedagogy. Therefore, I offer parent stories as a mechanism for having teachers consider the personal knowledge of families and children. Parent stories are narratives. I would compare parent stories to a doctor saying to you, okay, why is your cholesterol so high? And you tell the doctor, oh, I haven't had any fried foods or milk products. And they know that that couldn't be true with your cholesterol being so high. Well, sometimes these narratives are an opportunity for parents to tell us what their stories are. But I have to say to you that a lot of times parents say what they think we want to hear, not necessarily what happened in their home. And so the whole power behind parent stories is the fact that, as Courtney Kasdan would say, teachers, like physicians and social workers, are in the business of helping others. But as a prerequisite to giving help, we have to take in and understand what it is that we're dealing with. Parent stories gives us routines of parents and children. And of course, sometimes in some homes, they're not structured routines, but school is structured. Parent stories gives us parents' recollections of their children's early learning efforts. Parents' perceptions as to whether their occupations determine how they raise their children. Descriptions of parents' teachable moments, artifacts of children's literacy history, scrapbooks, audio tapes, videotapes, photographs. And we use those as a way for parents to tell us what they're doing. I have to tell you this quick story. One child in this kindergarten class kept erasing everything. And when we asked the traditional questions, the parents would always give us, appropriate answers. So one day I asked the mother, can you describe for me a teachable moment? And she said something that I thought was quite interesting. She said, it's important to me that my child is perfect. So I started thinking, now, I said to her, perfect? And so what popped in my mind is that the parent The teacher was asking the child to be a risk taker. His mother hadn't raised one. So if we were to ask the traditional kinds of questions, we wouldn't have gotten that information. Parent stories can provide teachers with the opportunity to gain deeper understanding of the human side of families and children, why children behave the way they do, children's ways of communicating, some of the problems parents have encountered, and how these problems may have impacted their children's views about school and the schooling process. I love telling this story. I know growing up, a lot of times people would say to girls, if they weren't doing well in math, that's okay. Girls don't do well in math. Well, I'm really happy that Sally Ride's mom and daddy did not tell her that. Sally Ride was good in math, and Sally Ride went to the moon. Parent stories offer a route out of the blame game and the justification that teachers sometimes give for not successfully teaching children labeled at risk. I always say when we don't know a person's story, we make up a story. We make up what we think it should be. Children are who they are, according to P. David Pearson. They know what they know. They bring what they bring. Our job is not to wish students knew more and knew differently. Our job is to turn each student's knowledge and diversity of knowledge we encounter into a curricular strength rather than instructional inconvenience. Unfortunately, a lot of times children become instructional inconveniences because we don't know their story. Demographic profile. One of the things that when I went to Kendon Professional Development School was that in 1952, when that school was built, it was a first-time homeowner school. The school was the hub. The parents and the teachers, attended the same church. They socialized together. They all had views about their kids going to college. They had selected the college that their kids were going to go to. I coordinated the home literacy program at Kendon, and I had a series of goals: to respect the multiple literacy environments families represented, to become knowledgeable of the family's capability, responsibility, and willingness to be involved in their children's education, to help educators recognize that not all families are the same, to help schools reach out to diverse families in new and different ways, and to help educators create a personalized learning environment among themselves and the students and the families that they work with, and also to develop what I call a scope and sequence of parent involvement. But let me talk to you briefly about the demographic profile. As I said to you, in 1952, when Kendon was built, it was the first time homeowner school. And guess what? When I went there in 1990, it was a transient, renters, trailer park, downtown inner city Lansing. Of course, Lansing is not a major city, but it's the capital city here in Michigan. And the teachers were still trying to communicate with parents that were parents in 1952. In 1952, 90% of the parents were stay-home mothers. Well, in 1990, most of the parents were working, so they could not have the same kind of relationship. So we did a demographic profile, and this data would be located in the office. We looked at a classroom demographic profile and a classroom demographic profile and a school demographic profile. I often hear teachers say, how did I get a class so bad? And what they're meaning is, how did I get such a group of kids that don't work well together? So one of the things about a demographic profile, it lays out for the school and teachers who's in your school. And therefore, you can change your instruction in different kinds of ways based on who's sitting in front of you. I'm going to move on because I want to give you all an opportunity to ask some questions. But this is what a demographic profile does. It allows teachers to develop a tailor-made parental involvement activities. It helps educators to see the history of parent involvement at the school and classroom level. It allows educators to see whether parent involvement has been effective. It gives teachers a way to pinpoint where problems may be occurring. It allows teachers to interact with families in a way that is specific to their needs. It provides teachers with an in-depth look at the strengths of a family slash community. It gives teachers real data and removes the guesswork, assumptions, and judgments about families. And more importantly, it allows teachers to connect families on a grade by grade level basis. Parent involvement is not the parent's responsibility alone, nor is it the schools or teachers or community educators' responsibility. Parent involvement is everybody's job, but nobody's job until a structure is put in place to support it. A scoping sequence. I know many of you have had ice cream socials, spaghetti dinners, pancakes for breakfast, muffins for moms, donuts for dads. Those are all events. James Carville, politician, used to always say, "It's the economy, stupid." Teachers are not stupid, but and of course, educators are not stupid. But one of the things that I have been saying to educators is that we need to capitalize on the curriculum. Capitalize on the curriculum as a means of communicating with parents. It is an ongoing way to keep parents totally informed of their child's day, the school's goals and objectives. It is one way to begin to establish close, meaningful communication with busy parents. And I know this works because I spent 4 years developing this with the teachers at Kendon Professional Development School. Folk theories about a scope and sequence. Gives us some advice about folk theories and about students and families. Because sometimes people don't have data about families, but they make up their own data about families. It's a cohesiveness of your instructional network. Developing a shared vision. We always talk about developing a learning community. Well, when you have a scope and sequence of parent involvement, you have a shared vision of what you want to happen in your school. So one of the things that I did at this particular school is in kindergarten, I focused on sharing time, oral language development. We sent home tape recorders with the parents because we had a little money to do that. And then we had the parents tape their conversations at home. And then we actually videotaped the child's performance at school. I always tell teachers that parents view you as a good teacher if you are a good teacher of their child. So guess what? In first grade, I had parents become researchers of their own children. I bought them a copy with funds on what did I write, what did I read, and by Mara Clay. And I said to them, that what I want you to do is look at what we're doing in school so you will understand how your child is growing as a literacy learner. And that was very successful. In second grade, we focused on reading and writing connections. A lot of times in education, we use Education Ease, and a lot of parents didn't know what reading and writing workshops were. So we were able to have parents participate in those workshops. And by the way, the parents came on a monthly basis for these parent informant literacy groups. Third grade, we focused on writing, and we looked at the standards, the standards that we worked on were the state standards. And now at that time, they were not called the Common Core. Common Core has come in much later. But the end product was that each parent, a lot of parents would end up with the learning how to do the kind of writing that would support their children in school, as well as develop a document that would be a family reunion document, because they would be doing the kind of writing to plan a family reunion. Fourth and fifth grade, we focused on content area reading, and that was very good. So what was happening is we selected these things based on test scores, what had surfaced as to what teachers should focus on to get their um to get themselves involved. Those who say it cannot be done should not interrupt the people doing it. Because when I was doing this, a lot of people didn't think that this was going to work, but it did. Coming together is the beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. And so these were our parent informant literacy groups. And I found that parents enjoyed coming together with each other. And I've been reading some of the notes on the side messages that, some parents don't feel comfortable coming to school, but we have to create that environment where we help them to become comfortable. And the only way to start is to start. One of the things I'd like to close with is America's future walks through the doors of our schools every day. And we have to, and if we've been doing things a certain kind of way and it hasn't been working, I would entertain the whole notion of thinking in some new and different kinds of ways. All right. So now,
Hi, Dr. Edwards. Are you ready to take some questions?
yes, can I, rather than type the questions, can I just answer the questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll read you the questions and we can answer them like that.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so the first one we have here is, do you have suggestions for working with families who speak languages other than English?
One of the things that I have worked with is that everything that I just presented was also, because in Lansing, we have 54 different language minorities. And when I worked in the school and other ELL schools wanted those materials, we did it all in the language that they have. We have a language department here at Michigan State with hundreds of languages that are being taught to people, and we interpreted all of that information in multiple languages. So I would suggest that we create written forms as well as videos and other kinds of materials that can communicate to a wide range of families.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next question, it says, what would you suggest as a way to get them to tell their story?
One of the things that I always would say to parents is that, for one thing, you are your child's first teacher. And when I did the study on parent stories, I shared with them that if you went to the doctor, there would be dire consequences if you didn't tell the truth to a doctor, and that teachers are responsible for your children's instructional life. And we would like to know information where we can better help you. And I told the parents that teachers have their sort of narrative about what they are doing in class. And so what we would like is an alternative narrative where you can give us more clarification as to why you think that is happening. And for the most part, I told the parents I would rather be talking to you at this particular point when I first did the study. Of course, parent stories have been used at multiple grades now, but I started in kindergarten, first grade, because first grade is that assessment treadmill. And I said to them, I'd rather be talking to you when your child is 6 rather than 16. And the quicker we can get our hands on what we need to do, the better it would be. And at first, I must admit to you, some parents weren't telling the truth. And I simply said to them, well, if you were doing what you said you were doing, I would see these kinds of behaviors in class. And when I say behaviors, I'm talking about literacy behaviors. Because I told them that children enter school early, they enter emergent, and they enter fluent. And I shared with them what those behaviors would look like. And I talked to them in detail about literacy coddling. So a lot of them started to change their stories when they knew that I was very persistent.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer. Okay, the next question we have here is how can we get parents involved in their child's programs?
I think what we have to do is create a structure for that. I think in the past, parent involvement has been high rhetoric, high, uh, but low practice. And I think that schools have to think about it in a more structured way. When I went to Kindergarten Professional Development School at first, when I mentioned earlier about ice cream socials and spaghetti dinners, that was their parent involvement initiative. I said, but guess what? At the end of the school year, we live in a very test oriented culture, and tests are never going to go away. So if you really want parents to be involved in a structured way, it needs to be built around the curriculum. And that's why I created these parent informant literacy groups around each grade level. And by the way, I worked with the employers of these people, of the parents in the school, and asked if they could let parents off during the day to come to these parent sessions, and they did. And I do think that parent involvement has been sort of this aftermath, um, and I do think that it has to be center stage, and I do think that, and I even had what I called a community meeting where I talked with them and the parents about our new approach to working with our first teachers. And I used to use the metaphor that when I was growing up and I went to the park across the street from my house, I couldn't be on the seesaw unless I could recruit another child for balance. And I told them that in order for me to balance what's going on here, I'm going to need your input. So I think we have to reintroduce ourselves and parent involvement in a new and different kind of way. For one thing, um, that's why parents are so excited in August because they're sending their kids to school. And I'm asking schools to plan an agenda at the beginning of the year. Coaches give parents dates and times for the entire year for their children to be involved in a sport. And I'm asking schools to take that same structure and create that kind of structure so it's not a surprise to parents.
I like that seesaw metaphor.
hmm
Okay, let's see what else we have. What should be done at the preschool level for literacy?
I think one of the things that we should do is I know that in preschool, there's been this dichotomy between should we get kids engaged in play, and I think we should. But I would encourage preschool educators to look closely at what is going to be required when these kids cross the threshold of what some people call big school and in this place called school. And so as they are preparing and involving families, they need to give them a clear idea. Because I just left a meeting at the Michigan Department of Education where we were talking about from pre-K to 20 and what that should look like. And so I would encourage parents to do the kinds of things that are going to I always use this metaphor. We want to marinate children in the literature. We want to have kids coming to school soaking and dripping with print. So therefore they might not read day one, but at least they have an understanding of what this place called school is. So I would encourage preschool educators to give children structured play, but also help them to understand the roots of literacy, making sure that children are coming to school understanding this place called school. And I know that some people argue with that mentally appropriate, and I do think that over time developmentally appropriate have changed for some children. And I do think we cannot just send children to school. And I mean, no child is an empty vessel, but we have to make sure that we understand that school doesn't change because kids don't fit in it. And preparing that's what I encountered with the parents of Donaldsonville Elementary School. They had a misguided notion that everything should be done in done by the teacher. And even in preschool, teachers are teaching 1 to 20, 1 to 15. And that's why my mother used to say, well, there's one mother and one father in a house. And so I would encourage preschool teachers to look closely at the curriculum of schools.
Great. Thank you so much for all your answers today and your very comprehensive and fantastic presentation. I think that's all the time we have for questions. So I'm going to stop broadcasting myself and I'll pass it back to you to just finish up the last couple of slides. Thank you, Dr. Edwards.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you in Grapevine, Texas, where we can talk a little bit more. It's kind of hard to put everything within an hour presentation, but I look forward to seeing you all, and I look forward to reading your comments and everything. So, and by the way, I love coming to Texas because I love going to Papados. We do not have Papados in Michigan, and I would love for us to one day have that. Thank you very much, and you have a great afternoon.
Hi, everyone. We just wanted to say thank you once again, Dr. Edwards, for your fantastic presentation. And just remind you that if you attended this webinar with your email, if you pre-registered today, or if you logged in with your email address, even if you switch to phone, you'll be receiving your CE certificate within 24 hours. You only need to take the CE quiz if you join the session exclusively by phone, or if you are watching this as a recording. And please join the professional learning community, Early Childhood Learning Solutions. That's edweb.net/earlychildhood for access to free resources, online discussions, webinar recordings. And if you're a member of EdWeb, you'll see your EdWeb activity on your homepage. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great day.
I want to ask a quick question. A lot of them have been asking if they could have the slides.
Yes, they'll get access to that in the community. We'll make sure they know exactly how to get that.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.